right, I guess I'm gonna get started. This title's a little weird. It's basically, can we create joy and at will? And if so, should we? And why did I create this title? I don't know. This conversation, if you will, is somewhat of an experiment. A couple days ago, I was supposed to be doing stand-up comedy, and I was looking forward to it because I haven't done it since I started working at the spiritual center, because I've been trying to figure out how to do a ministerial role and do comedy. And so I've been kind of putting the comedy on hold a little bit, but then I felt like I had gotten to a place where I could do it. And someone from the community is a comedian, so they invited me to participate in their show, and I was really looking forward to doing it. And I was gonna do some comedy about grief, but instead of doing that show, I ended up having to be at my aunt's memorial service because I had yet another death in my life in less than 6 months, around 6 months. I've had three major people who have impacted my life die. My former stepdad, my little brother, and my aunt. And it's been an interesting season with the grief because for a long time, I've been a person where I kind of push through stuff. I've always been a person to push through stuff. I mean, for the most part. And I said this in a previous video. When I was just about to turn 4, my granddad died, and the pain of it was a lot. And I told myself I was never going to let myself feel like that again. And so a lot of my life has been um, really kind of sometimes rationalizing my feelings, sometimes just pushing through, sometimes taking the hit as hard as I can without like, I'm the type of person, like, if I have a migraine headache, I won't take medicine unless I can't function at all. I just hold on. I just go through the pain. And I've always been that way. And I haven't really sat with stuff in a way where I kind of tried to get out of it, or tried to kind of, I don't even know how you would describe it, because it's not something I do. I normally just take the hit as hard as I can take it, fall down, then I just get back up, and I don't pat myself on the back. I don't like say, give myself like a pep talk. I'm just, get your ass up, and then I just keep on going. And that's probably not the best way to be. It's a way to be, and it's the way I survived a lot of my life. But I have been reimagining my life had I let myself feel more grief and more pain in a way that wasn't purgative, like purging myself of weakness is what I guess I would have called it in the past. Yada, yada, yada. At any rate, so this question of joy, um, even though I have pushed through pain and stuff like that a lot in life, I have also felt some moments of incredible joy, almost like ecstasy, but I have never really been able to communicate it to other people effectively because so many of us, from my experience, are attached to a lot of things, especially outcomes. And one of the things that I learned how to do was to not be attached to outcomes. And by not being attached to outcomes, I would just be like, it is what it is. Get up and keep going. It is what it is. Get up and keep going. And I never felt like my desire for something to be a certain way was a valid reason to be disappointed if it wasn't the way that I thought it would be. Like in my previous relationships, I wanted them to work out and for us to be just amazing. I thought me and my second partner were going to be like what I imagined Michelle and Barack Obama were like, but wasn't in the cards for whatever reasons. And I let it hit me, and then I got my ass up again. That's what I did. That's what I do. But in this season right now, where I've been doing like kind of a, I guess I call it, scenic route of grief, it's been, I don't know, it's brought up a lot. And it's also brought up a lot of compassion for people, because I understand a little bit more deeply how some people may never recover from grief experiences, and that's hard because sometimes it feels like that right now. Because a lot of times my brain keeps thinking, "Who's next?" And I don't want to think that, but it just comes up, and then, or what if I'm next? That sort of thing. But it's just, I guess, part of being human. Um, but at the end of the day, we have to keep moving as long as we're here. And so I'm trying to balance out that feeling of grief and despair and all other stuff that's been coming up, while simultaneously knowing that that's not the end of any of the story and that I have to keep moving. So I'm going to segue a little bit into this dream I had the morning of my aunt's memorial service, which was a strange ish dream. So I dreamed that basically all of life was over. Like we've effed it up good. And so nothing left. We just destroyed everything. And it was just nothingness. That's the best way I can describe it. But I was conscious of the nothingness, which interestingly, I used to, when I was younger, I was so like kind of frustrated with some things in life that I said that I hope heaven is just nothingness, but that I'm just conscious of the nothingness and I can just rest in it. I said that one time. So it was like that happened. And then all of a sudden I just heard like laughing. And so there was like only laughing existed. And it was like, I can't even describe the laughter because it was just like a laughter that is beyond imagination. And it was just, that's all there was. It was just laughter and my consciousness of the laughter. And then all of a sudden they were like, all right, let's do it again. And life unfolded again. Same crap. The whole history of humanity just repeated the exact same way that it has already been up to the point where it destroyed. Only difference was this time I remembered that everything had collapsed into nothingness and then there was just laughter. And then uh I came back and I was like, hold on, I remember this. And then I was like, hey, I started telling people, don't worry about stuff because at the end, when it's all over, it's just going to be laughter. And people thought I was a little off. And then some people came up to me and they were some kind of authority figures. And they were like, listen, you've been telling people that once everything is over, there's just going to be laughter, but you're not supposed to remember that. And you're not supposed to tell people. So we're going to have to delete you. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, because if you know that, you're going to mess up everybody else's experience who's just going through it basically like dee 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 dee, and we don't want you to mess it up. So we're gonna have to delete you because that's better for everybody. And I was gonna go along with it, and they were about to chop me in half. And I was like, okay, I guess it was. And they said, doesn't matter because once we delete you, you're gonna start all over again. Same thing's gonna happen again. It's just that when you get rebooted, you won't remember that the laughter part and how all this ends. And so I was like, okay. So then I was gonna let them do it. And then something said, well, hold on. Do I have to let them do this? So then I just stopped and I said, hey, man, before y'all cut me in half, I think I don't want this. I feel like I just want to keep living my life because I have a family and my wife and my kids. And they were like, well, you're still going to get them again. It's just you won't remember all that stuff. And I was like, nah, I want to be with them and remember that stuff. And then they were like, well, okay. And I was like, what? And I was like, they said, well, we can't delete you unless you agree. And I was like, really? And I was like, yeah. So then I started thinking, like, well, shoot, I wonder what it's going to be like now that I'm walking through it with this knowledge that everybody's going to end up laughing in the end. Well, not everybody, because everybody was gone, but it was just laughter. And so that was the dream. Woke up. My friend told me I should do some Jungian analysis on it because I shared the dream. But what I came away with was just this awareness that in comedy, this is a weird transition, but in comedy, the formula is tragedy plus time. So anything tragic with enough time becomes funny. And then I coined this one as like disaster plus distance. So if there's a disaster, but a person has enough distance from it, it can seem funny to them. And so, with that being the formula and looking at the world we're in, there is definitely going to be a time where all of this ish is going to be hilarious to somebody. We might not be able to experience it because we're in it right now. That's why sometimes when people tell jokes, they go too soon because we have an inherent knowledge that there has to be a certain amount of time, a little bit of distance and things for us to see tragic things and disastrous things as funny. But we also know that eventually it will be. And that's just a part of life's unfolding. And so I had that awareness, and I knew, like I said, I was supposed to be doing stand up comedy. So I think my brain was just doing some work. But I also had gotten an email that day from somebody telling me they had read the Sojourners magazine article that I had written, where I talk about the universe is like a practical joke, and that God was a practical joker, because I had gotten requested or commissioned, I guess you would say, to write this article about Christmas, comedy, and authoritarianism, and which is very interesting combo. But I wrote it for Sojourners magazine. I don't remember the title, but essentially the point of the article was, what if all of this is a practical joke and God's a practical joker, and Christmas was the setup and Easter was the punchline from a Christian perspective, right? And that just like in practical jokes, they use different things to freak you out and make you think one thing is like distraction, all this stuff. And it was like, what if God's like playing this practical joke, and then just like in a practical joke, like you go to a place and you think somebody's dead, and then they're like, ah, I'm not. And then everybody started laughing. But first they were sad, and first they were feeling tragedy. And then they're like, oh, haha, that was scary. That was scary. But now it's funny. It was like that was all in my consciousness when I had a dream. And actually, a few days before that, I dreamed that my brother wasn't really dead, and that it wasn't a practical joke. It was just a mistaken identity, and he was still alive. And I was like so grateful, like, oh my God, he's still alive. So I think my brain was just processing all of that. All that to say, I don't know if this answers the question of whether we can, choose to be joyful at will. But I guess the way I'll segue into that question is that if we are mindful that there is this formula for tragedy plus time equals comedy, or disaster plus distance equals comedy, and we know that things that are terrible now, one day we'll laugh at, or some generations will be looking back on us. And I know future generations are going to look back on this time and see the decisions we made and be like, what a bunch of effing idiots. And they're going to laugh at us hysterically. And sometimes I try to imagine myself if I were in one of those generations looking at us now, so I could laugh at us too, of how stupid we are collectively. Um, but I guess, I guess to make sense out of this mush of things I'm saying, I think that yes, we can choose joy at will. Should we? I guess it depends on the circumstance. It's kind of like the question: can anything be funny? And there's context, right? Um, right now, I was feeling sad before I came to make this video. And I was asking myself, like, what could I do, or what could I bring in to make me feel better? And then I was just like, well, whatever I could bring in to make me feel better would be a decision that I was making. I would have to decide that something outside of myself was going to make me feel better, and then I would allow it to make me feel better. But I could just decide to feel better without the external intervention, or without the need for something outside of myself to bring me back into a place of joy. And so I decided to do this experiment and make this video, kind of answering the question for myself in real time. And I think the answer is yes. I actually feel better from making this video than I felt a little while ago. I was feeling pretty down a little while ago, um, for several reasons, including the deaths and stuff that I experienced. And then my furnace was having problems, and I think it's out of warranty. So I was like, not this too. So I was, feeling kind of down. Um, but right now, trying to navigate this question with nobody, but hopefully later somebody will watch this and get something out of it, is answering the question, because by trying to answer the question, I'm living the answer. I can feel myself getting lighter. I can feel myself feeling happier. I can feel myself remembering that, yeah, like this too shall pass. And also that some of the things that seem like, um, are painful now will be funny in the future. And at the same time, it's not, ignoring the pain that things are bringing up right now, personally and socially, nationally. I've heard, besides what's been happening in my own life, people I know have been experiencing tragedies. Um, like my friend lost their wife because of this ice chase in Georgia. A kid I know's dad died. Last night I was at an event for sponsored by this hospice thing that was for grief, and it was like 80 or more people, and everyone was expressing recent or near recent things that they experienced. So it's a lot that's going on for a lot of people right now, and it's a lot for us to process. But I do think that when we get still, when we reflect, we can choose joy. And so, even though it might not be the easiest thing to do, I'm in the process of trying to get myself to choose that now, and realizing that at any moment I can choose it. And so, hopefully, if you encounter this, if you're in a place where you're feeling grief or feeling challenged, you know that there is the choice, and you can also choose to wait. You can also take your time. You don't have to rush it because it will make other people feel better. Or, like in the case of how I've been in historically, I've been in a protector role or a ministerial role. So I always felt like I had to push through my stuff sooner so that I could get back to caring for other people. So this is also a season where I'm learning how to be a better receiver of care. And so that's going to be a big shift for me and maybe a big shift for a lot of you. So thank you for being on this journey. Thank you for allowing me to experiment with you and ask these questions. And I guess that's it. So long story long, the answer is yes, you can choose it. Should you? Probably. But also be mindful of your context and how you show up impacts other people, negatively or positively. It's a big mess out here, but I think that with consciousness and with mindfulness, we can get better at taking care of ourselves. And then when we are taking care of ourselves, then it may be easier to care for others who may not be in a position to care for themselves. And eventually, hopefully, we'll all, or more of us, I won't say all, that's a tall order, more of us will get to a place of spiritual and mental and emotional health. And we will live in a world that reflects the health that we cultivated within ourselves. So thanks for taking the time to listen to this. I know it's kind of a little bit of a jumble, but like I said, it's an experiment. Peace.